Well, hello, stargazers. This is your September 2024 monthly horoscope. And bang, baby, now we're off to the races. So before I get into this, I just want to give you a funny personal story to kind of illustrate what we're looking at, especially opening up the beginning of this month. So as I dawdled and diddled around for the last week, thinking about what I'm going to do for the horoscope this month that I couldn't, that I could possibly give you that other people haven't given you already, in spades, and also wondering like how much value anything I have to say has for anyone by comparison. And certainly there's some very good YouTube personalities out there doing astrology, and more every day. Everybody thinks this is easy, stringing together a bunch of keywords, and I suppose that's true anyway. So really wondering what I should do, or if I should continue the channel, yada yada yada. Not to mention some major life changes going on here. So last night, today is August 31st, and last night I was standing on a chair, and this is a testimony to confidence and over-optimism that we may be struggling with this month. Standing on a chair to clean a mirror and slipped and fell backwards on the concrete floor, and I sprained my wrist and shoulder so bad my wrist is splinted up, and I'm going to be out of commission for about a week. I can't use my hand. I can barely type. With the hand that my dominant hand, the thing that I do everything with. Thank God it's a holiday weekend here, so however long it takes me to figure out how to get in that shower and wash myself with one arm, I've got plenty of time to do it without offending people as I walk by in public. Now, mind you, just prior to this, because I'm allergic to spider bites, a spider bit me in the night on my face, and for whatever reason, it's the left side of my face near my eye that they love. So of course my face is now swollen up and I look like a monster, and now I have no use of my right arm. Now, all of this is to say that this is how the month of September is opening up for some of us. The most important thing here is to understand that overconfidence and too much faith in the unknown without using our common sense could be an Achilles heel this month, so be aware, especially this first week. Because this first week, opening up the month, is September 1st and 2nd, we've got some big stellar activity that we're going to get to right now. So stay tuned and let's jump to the next slide. All right, you beautiful mad people out there. All right, so here's where we are at on September 2nd. Let me write this down. Bear with me, I'm working with my non-dominant hand trying to write this stuff. So September, God, that's so awful. Give or take a day. September 2nd, give or take a day, we have a new moon in Virgo, okay, that will be pulling in opposition to Saturn in Pisces, which, this particular combination is not fun by any stretch of the imagination. So for those of you who are being hit with this Saturn and Pisces transits, and especially right now with Saturn in those middling degrees, this new moon may push all the wrong buttons and really being your insecurities, your shortcomings, your weaknesses, all of the deficits and handicaps you're working with in life, literally bring them to the forefront. Now, the important thing to remember, okay, and this also means those of you who are also carrying planets in Gemini, Sagittarius, or Virgo on that mutable sign axis. The thing to understand and that is important to remember about this is that all of these things being brought to light and brought to your attention in clear display, not to make you feel bad or to reinforce what a horrible loser you are or anything. That's not what this is about. What this is, my friends, because Mercury has just turned direct like a week ago, is an opportunity for you to re-examine what needs to be shored up, repaired, fortified, fixed, or basically, planned for in the event of catastrophic emergency in your life, right? So we know that there are limitations we work with. That's our Saturn. And we know that being realistic about how we plan and prepare for these things, there's that Virgo, are the things that make life run smoothly. Ask anybody whose life like runs pretty much like a Swiss clock that actually does something involving leaving the house and participating with the world. And they will tell you that organization and planning and being prepared is important, but that requires paying attention to detail, not judging yourself for what's not working or what you don't have to work with, but instead understanding that these are the restrictions and challenges you're dealing with, and they just need a little extra TLC time and attention so that we can work with them. Okay? So this new moon, as it opposes Saturn, may bring up some stuff for a whole bunch of people that may not make you feel great about yourself or your life. And it's not supposed to. What it is supposed to do is snap you out of your dumb, fat, and happy on the couch coma, which we all love to be in. We're all like the puppy, right? Want to hang out and eat and sleep and get our bellies rubbed. And to give you a chance to go in and make some course corrections and do some planning, make some insurance contingency plans. So use this time and anything that's happening around this new moon in the first week of September to your advantage in terms of really seeing where we can do something a little differently. Okay, not even about better or worse, but literally doing something differently. So hang in there, my friends. This is not a big, happy, festive new moon, and it doesn't have to be. This is a good insurance moon. Okay, now at the same time, we will have Mars leaving Gemini. Thank freaking God. Now, the thing about it, though, is with Mars leaving Gemini, because Mars will be a 28, 29 Gemini, it will make its final square to Neptune as it's passing through, which is going to bring its own set of issues, right? So literally getting blindsided, getting caught off guard, not seeing something, totally missing something, having things come out of the clear blue sky, carelessness, all of these things from not paying attention to your surroundings are absolutely on the list of things we need to be aware of as Mars makes its passage out of Gemini this first week of the month. Hence, my over-optimism and confidence in the goodwill of the universe had me fall backwards off a chair while I was trying to clean a mirror, and now I'm incapacitated in a splint for at least a week. So don't let this happen to you. I got lucky because this is minor, but these things could be serious if we're not paying attention. So understand that a little fuzzy thinking may be possible this first week, especially with this sour, dour new moon opposed Saturn. But try not to let yourself get lost in the fog, okay? Because that's where the accidents are going to happen. Now, at the same time, what makes this particular first week of the month so wow, holy crap, right? And such a big, stellar, momentous thing is that along with all of this, Uranus and Pluto are both stationing retrograde. So we're going to start with Pluto and then work backwards. So Pluto will station retrograde back into the sign of Capricorn. And what this means is that the cleanup crew has come back to finish the job. So we've been through this transit before a couple of times where Pluto is backed up into its previous sign. In this particular case, Pluto is backing up into the sign of Capricorn and as part of its final passes. And so think of it as the cleanup crew coming back to do the detail work and make sure every last little bit is gone, taking the trash out. Now, with Capricorn, we know that Capricorn has a lot to do with the patriarchy, for those of you who are of the feminist or womanist orientation. Capricorn also has a lot to do with history and old men and the way we, cough, cough, used to do things. So Capricorn has a lot to do with the establishment and corporations and big business, right? It has a lot to do with the things that give structure and define the mechanics and architecture of a society, as well as our personal lives, but primarily society and how we interact as a group. Now, Capricorn also rules managers because the keywords for Capricorn is I use, but really what that means is I manage. Capricorns are notorious people managers. Because they manage resources and human labor and human energy and humans, ingenuity and everything else is absolutely a resource. So rather than using what they have to work with, because Capricorns are realistic and they know their limitations, they will utilize and manage the resources in front of them from other people, even if it means managing other people because they are a resource. With Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn, we're going to see on a meta level, we're going to see some of the big representatives of the old ways of life, right? The old ways of doing things, the patriarchy really kicking in. Now remember, with your outer planets, we feel this months before it is officially turning directions. So we've already started seeing the effect of Pluto going retrograde. And now that it's officially moving into the previous sign, it's really going to add some color and patina to the painting that we're being delivered here. With Pluto retrograde backing up into the sign of Capricorn already being in effect, I will give you an example of what I'm talking about here. In in Afghanistan, a new rule has come down by the Taliban that women not only are not allowed to show their faces in public, which is not really new, that's been a thing for a long time, but they're also now, their voices cannot be heard in public. They must remain silent in public. So women are literally being made invisible, not seen or heard in public. And this just came down like a week or so ago. And Capricorn, again, is the patriarch and the old ways of doing things and oppression, right? And managing resources. So Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn is giving us that one big final donkey kick from the powers that be that are moving out of power as they desperately grasp, like last chance gasp grasping at the straws of power they used to have so generously in hand. So this first week of September, look for some interesting, and certainly moving forward into the month of September, look for some interesting developments in terms of power plays, especially with people who uphold the old traditional ways of living that are on the way out. Okay, so it's not that they're right or they're wrong, although if you ask me, they're wrong. It is absolutely about evolution and progress and moving forward to the future and letting go of the past. So the people who are desperately clinging to a past that benefited them are going to give us one big last donkey kick to try and dig in and keep the future from happening. So keep an eye on that and look for some big turning points in terms of power and power games and who has it and who doesn't and where we're going as the month moves along, starting with the opening of September. And certainly, of course, because these are outer planets, the last week or 2 weeks of August. All right, now with that said, also too, Uranus is going retrograde. Uranus remains near the degree of Algol, which is the fixed star of hysteria, violence, depending on who you ask, right? But also female empowerment, right? And surprise, cuckolds. So, I know, right? So Uranus stationing retrograde in Taurus is going to give us an opportunity to do some course corrections in terms of economics, values, and priorities. Remember, Taurus is about your resources. It's about the things that you build with, right? So it's not just about money. So it's not coins and cash and copper. Taurus is also about food, right? And lumber and bricks and trees and grass. It's all about the resources that we have available to us to build with, right? Even at its most essential basic levels. So with Uranus going retrograde in Taurus like this, and near the degree of Algol, my suspicion, and we'll certainly watch this and see how it plays out, my suspicion is that we will see a return to discussions about the environment, because Taurus is absolutely about natural resources. Women will and should lead the way. Nobody's more invested in the future than the woman who's carrying a child. She can only carry once. It's not like we throw out litters of kids. So we have a real investment into making sure those kids survive and thrive, because how many kids do you think a woman's going to have in a lifetime? So there's that. This is not to say that men are not invested, but it is to say in terms of innate, imperative, urgent commitment to maintaining life, moving forward, women have the greater natural investment. There's an innate understanding how vital and important this is, because we are participating in this and we only get a couple of chances to produce these kids. And this is why you never see women running great military operations to go conquer and invade and kill people. Just saying. So we may be looking at possibly the slow, because Taurus is very slow, and so are the outer planets, the slow return to more matriarchal cultural living, right? More emphasis on the land, on resources, food, housing, safety, right? Oh gosh. and all of these things, and rebuilding society or rebuilding the world around you personally as you know it to be more life sustaining in terms of a simple, realistic life, right? So all these little Instagram cuties and social media darlings that are all selfie, selfie, selfie and living in the Neptune fantasy land and Gemini fantasy land of images, right? In social media, that for a lot of us, you'll be relieved to know that that's going to be coming to an end. It's a slow grind, but we're getting there. So what does this mean for you personally? Dun, 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 dun. Well, what this means for you personally is you may see a return to some old issues in your life. Again, this does not have to be bad. This is an opportunity to fix things, to find out where things are not working or they're weak, and to do it better or to change something so that it's more efficient. New moon in Virgo. So for those of you who are carrying planets in, well, let's do it this way. For those of you who are carrying planets in the earth signs, right? Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. This is going to be a very profoundly important time for you, and you're going to get some really good lucky breaks to plant acorns that will grow into oak trees later, okay? So pay attention. The devil is in the details because it is the new moon in Virgo. So what you plant in terms of your words, your actions, your beliefs, and your thoughts are the things that will grow into mighty oak trees later. So mind yourself and think about what you're doing. Be conscious so that you're not planting things like weeds that you'll want to get rid of and never be able to because it'll just overrun and choke out everything else. All right, now some other things that are happening as we open up the month. We have, I thought this was interesting. I'm going to share it with you. Admetos, Vulcanus, and Cupido. Yes, Admetos, Vulcanus, and Cupido, the asteroids, all bundled together. Now, with the asteroids, or the trans-Neptunians, I'm sorry, they really, really want an extremely tight orb. So don't let anybody give you these sloppy astrology orbs. Well, this one's at 4 degrees, now it's at 20, but it's the same sign, so it counts. No, it does not, Sparky. Sit down and shut up. With trans-Neptunians, you've got a 1 degree orb. Literally, they have to be within almost exact aspect to really see their presence, right? And remember, these are tiny minor planetoids, and it's not the same thing as dealing with the big players in our solar system that we're running our life clocks by. So literally tight, like almond sliver orbs is what we want here. So as we open up the week for September, Admetos, Vulcanus, and Cupido are all within 1 degree orb of each other. So my best guess at this point, because Admetos rules force and also things coming to a stop, Vulcanus rules great force and power, and Cupido is the markets. So we may see some stock market or economic wobbles this month, or maybe even some activity with a bank coming to a standstill or being forced to stop and cool their heels. So there are some big important things that will come to almost an immediate arrest, as it were, a pause in the beat this first week of the month. Now, the other thing interesting too is Vulcanus. Typically, it's Zeus we associate with rockets, but with Vulcanus, I would also absolutely associate this with spaceships and rockets. So let's see what happens with the astronauts that are still in limbo in space. And the Boeing SpaceX thing happening right now, because apparently Boeing, because they've so messed up their planes, Jesus, these people, SpaceX is going to be the ones going out to rescue the astronauts because nobody trusts Boeing now. But Boeing is a major commercial, player. SpaceX is a startup. So it will be interesting to see if this is what's being reflected as well in terms of things coming to an immediate arrested halt, like a pause and a beat, pause for the cause, with Admetos, Vulcanus, and Cupido. For you personally in your life, this is a really important time to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on your credit cards and your bank statements and your purchases. Keep your receipts this week. Because something maybe get hung up in the glitch. And also too, for example, deliveries may not get delivered. I had ordered something to be delivered to a friend in California, and apparently there was an issue with the shipment, so it never got delivered. And I just found out about it. So weird things like that, where things are not going to move forward as smoothly or as predictably as they could be a thing this first week of the month. Okay. Other things that are happening that are particularly notable and nice as we open up September. Venus will be in Libra. Ooh, Venus. Now, Venus, or I'm sorry, it was Apollon, not Cupido. Apollon was part of that trans-Neptunian configuration. Sorry, folks. The same translations apply. It was just a wrong name for the trans-Neptunian. Cupido is in square to Venus as we open up the month. Cupido, so I can circle this for you. Cupido has to do with marriage contracts and community affairs, right? And the things that make us good neighbors and good associates and good coworkers and good people to be around. So with Venus squaring Cupido, what I would and Venus in its rulership in Libra, we are going to look at this in two ways. On the one hand, there's going to be more of an urge and a need to connect with our neighbors and the people around us and to build good social and parasocial relationships. So if you suddenly feel the urge to go have a cup of tea with your neighbor, or be the welcome wagon, at work or whatever, right, to reach out and build a bridge between yourself and other people, this is a really good time to do it. The other side of this is it is also a possibility because Libra is also a planet of war, right? The two faces of Libra, love me or I'll kill ya. No, sorry, that's Scorpio. Libra doesn't get their hands dirty. Okay, so with Venus Cupido square like this, there's also the possibility that we may be looking at issues that are specific to, hang on, bear with me, that are specific to warmongering or violent behavior, right? That literally forcing yourself, the whole incel online community mentality of forcing yourself on people and places that don't want you and didn't invite you. Because there's that need for connection and literally interacting with other people in a very intimate way, which some people are not necessarily going to understand or do well, because psychos. So forced marriage, child brides, again, women's rights, all of these things may be coming to the forefront for discussion and more highlighted awareness this week. For you personally, I would just be aware that some people, especially if they're feeling very amorous or very desiring of being amorous with you, may be more imposing and wanting to interject themselves into your life a little bit more enthusiastically or eagerly than you're comfortable with. So, be aware of who you're dealing with and make sure you've got an emergency plan ready to get yourself out of awkward conversations and situations. This is not to say, for all of you hack astrologers out there, this is not to say that this is about things being rapey. Oh my God, such a rape aspect. That's not what this is about. But there are some people who, in their clumsy ignorance and enthusiasm, may be a little bit too forward for your comfort, or maybe literally hitting on the wrong mark. So, we're trying to make this first week with everything else we're dealing with at least a little easier to navigate. So let's bear with that. Now, Jupiter, is this right? Hang on a second. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, old people disease. I saw Jupiter in Gemini. I'm like, wait, when did Jupiter in Gemini? Jupiter was just in Taurus last week. With Jupiter in Gemini, now this Jupiter in Gemini will be setting up a wide T-square. So we've still got this Jupiter-Saturn square going on, but it's weakening, right? So the worst of it was last month. And my goodness, what a colorful month it's been. People literally having mental meltdowns in the most colorful ways, like watching an astrip. I've managed to avoid watching the news for most of the month. And I have to say, this whole ignorance of the world around me and current events has been really nice. So now I really appreciate why people do this. But at the same time, when you miss a little, you miss a lot these days. So the worst the Jupiter-Saturn stuff was last month, and now we're starting to get a little bit of break from this. We're getting some reprieve, and we're going to be getting some hopefully easier things to deal with. But this month, September, is definitely a pause for the cause. So we're going to have a chance to breathe. So if you need to get stuff done or you need cooperation, this is the month to do it. Now, also, too, understand that this Jupiter, come here, darling. Yep. Let's try this. Right. This Jupiter will be setting up a trine to Zeus. Okay, so Jupiter's at 19 Gemini, Zeus is at 23 Libra. And what that Zeus is going to do is, as Jupiter gets closer, towards the end of the month, maybe the next month, because remember with trans-Neptunians, we want a 1-degree orb, we want an almond sliver orb. It will lend Jupiter a lot of power. Now, Jupiter is passing through the stormy part of Gemini, so lots of stormy asteroids in this part of the sign. And certainly more as Jupiter moves a couple more degrees down into it. Zeus trying that and giving it more fuel to the fire is really going to set us up for some really colorful battle royale, which doesn't necessarily have to mean we're going to war. So take a breath, and remember, where you put your thoughts, you're feeding energy too. So if you guys have been doing great so far. So if we'd like to continue this trajectory away from war, right, and conflict, and getting these knuckleheads like done and gone, this is the time to focus on what we do want to see, because Zeus trining Jupiter and Gemini like that will absolutely give super fuel to your thoughts and the ability to manifest what it is you're actually giving your attention to. So that, my friends, is how we're starting the week of September. So let's move along, little doggy, and see what else we got. Okay. As we get closer to September 11th, we have a quarter moon at 19 Sagittarius. The sun will be at 19 Virgo, the moon will be at 19 Sagittarius, and that moon will also happen to be opposing Jupiter in Gemini. So if you can imagine a horse race where horses are running on a track racing each other, and then in the final legs, the one horse like breaks free from the pack and really starts taking off and getting at least a full length or more ahead of the other horses, and is about to win the race. Because this is where the effort is really being put in to break away from everyone else, right, and to get ahead of everything. This is the kind of feeling that we're having around this quarter moon. So literally, this is when things are going to take off and really start running. Now, interestingly, around this time, I believe it's September 10th, we have there's a debate scheduled here in the United States between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So this should be interesting. Now, just using that as an example, what this also means is the result of this debate is literally going to allow one or the other to break free and gain huge advances towards success by literal leaps and bounds. So imagine a horse race, and it's the last legs of the race, and the horse breaks free and is really outpacing all of them, about to take the win, clear and easy, leaving the others in the dust. This is kind of the energy that we're having right now with everything, and the debate should give us a living example of what that would look like in terms of mundane activities. So we can expect that type of energy and changes in any type of race or effort or competition or advancement across the board with everyone everywhere, especially big major stuff. But it will absolutely be, in theory, it will absolutely be for the better because Jupiter is involved. So Jupiter puts a lot of wind in our sails. Certainly a lot of wind everywhere else too. But the moon in Jupiter, excuse me, is a moon in Sagittarius is a really nice placement always. It's a very optimistic, hopeful placement, and Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter. So we've got a lot of Jupiter energy at this quarter moon. Now, interestingly, while this is happening, we've got planets and planetoids all sitting at that 15th degree, which in degree theory is the Gemini degree. And that means that the activities of Mercury and the placement and information we get from Mercury will be critical in terms of how this plays out. Now, at this time, Mercury will be in Virgo, so it will be in its strongest position ever. And it will be sextile Mars in Cancer, which is literally going to put a fine point on anything that is established at this time. So when it comes to winners and losers in competitions, the air quotes clear winner our undeniable winner in these things that's going to make huge advances by leaps and bounds at this time. So there's literally, it's impossible to argue what's happening. Will literally put a fine point on whatever this competition or contest is that brought us to this place that we're watching this, right? In your personal life, you may find that your thinking and your clarity of mind is much more clear than it has been in a long time. So this is a great time for making decisions and having important conversations and making choices, right? And thinking about where you want to go and what you want to do. You're going to find your clarity of thought is just amazing right now. What this also means is that other people will be having the same effect. So pay attention to what they're actually saying. People are thankfully meaning what they say and doing what they mean. So there's a real alignment of thought, intent, purpose, and action at this time, which is a beautiful thing. So going back to these 15 degrees, these Gemini degrees, now here's the planet and planetoids that are there. So in terms of planets, we have Venus at 15 Libra and Saturn at 15 Pisces. Now Venus at 15 Libra, this begins a section of the zodiac called the burning way, via combusta, which is typically a vindictive, revenge-oriented passage. 15 Libra to 15 Scorpio is considered via combusta, or the burning way, and things tend to get annihilated through this little section of degrees. Now, if you have that in your natal chart, don't panic. But because these things don't always play out exactly in all contexts. So with natal charts, I wouldn't use it so much, but for events and mundane things, I would definitely consider the real possibility that vindication or vengeance is absolutely going to begin to be foremost and upfront for at least another week or so, beginning with things happening under this quarter moon. So we may see the black horse in the race coming up from the back and leading the pack. And if that happens, people who are needing retribution or vindication, I'm not going to say vengeance, but that's there too. This is going to be their time to really throw that hammer down and, drive home a fine point about how wrong other people were in underestimating them. So that will be interesting to see how exactly that plays out. Saturn will be in Pisces at that degree. Now, Saturn in Pisces has not been, well, I mean, let's face facts. This has not exactly been the happiest transit ever for anyone. Because Saturn is about realism and Pisces is about escapism. Pisces is also about the golden rule, right? The spiritual truths and the spiritual principles that are supposed to guide us through life to be better people, right? And that's a tough road to hoe for a lot of people. Like trying to be your better, shinier example of humanity, when the world is so inhumane and it's much easier to be a devil. It's challenging, and nobody likes to have to face their demons, and face their ugly sides. Even Buddha and Jesus struggled with these things. So the ability to deal with these things and to surmount them and get past them and to rise above them is the greatest challenge of all with Saturn and Pisces. With Saturn and Pisces at this Gemini degree, this is absolutely going to split us into two minds. So how we think, because Gemini, Mercury, is extremely important and will sorely be challenged at this time. So check in with yourself and guard your thoughts and understand that you can entertain and hold two thoughts, or a thought and an emotion of opposing nature at the same time. The question is, which of these things, if you allow them room to exist and you're going to validate them, which of them is going to allow you to be the better version of yourself? Which of these will follow the golden rule? So, and listen, it's really hard to turn the other cheek when somebody just smacked the other side, but it's this kind of a thing. Sometimes we have to rise above, the mud line to get where we need to be, and it's never easy. Good things are not easy. So there's that. Now, as far as planetoids, we have Poseidon at 15 Scorpio, and it will be trining Hades and Kronos, at the midpoint of Hades and Kronos, at 14 and 16 Cancer. Now, we are allowed a degree orb, and the fact of the matter is, because this 15 degrees sits the midpoint of Hades and Kronos, ties those two planetoids together even more and emphasizes this even more. Now, with that, that Saturn that we just discussed is also at 15 degrees. So basically what we have happening underneath this is a grand trine between Poseidon, Saturn, Kronos, and Hades. Now, remember, all of this is about the golden rule and being the better person. Even though the temptation and the ability to have both sides of our nature, higher and lower, present at the same time, competing for dominance in our energy vibrations. Hades has a lot to do with the underground. It has a lot to do with the criminal underground. It has a lot to do with sewage. It has a lot to do with all the unsightly, ungainly, ugly parts of our nature. It also has to do with death, decay, dump sites, all the things where basically you would find worms and maggots and, you know, things rotting away kind of thing. This is Hades. Hades also, by the way, in case you didn't know, rules surgery, because you're getting into the guts and mess and yuck, the muck of life when you're doing surgery. So there's that. Now, Kronos has a lot to do with the highest standard possible, which also has to do with medicine, right? Exceptionalism. So Hades and Kronos together represent the highest standard possible in terms of either death, destruction, muck, you know, all the ugly things in life, the things that are the ugly side of being in a human form, in a human world. Also, psychotherapy, right? Crazy people. Power grabs, because, you know, Hades, Lord of the Underworld, you know, and Lucifer, if you follow the Christian Bible, you know, it's better to reign in hell than to serve someone else in heaven. So it's also about power at this time too, and reaching the highest standard possible of that sort of thing. With Saturn and Poseidon there making a grand trine, here's the good news. This gives us an opportunity to rise to our higher nature, and this absolutely involves mass consciousness. So even if the people or the active players who are personifying this battle of good versus evil, power versus humility, you know, the higher nature versus the lower nature, there are people who will literally act out like a theater or a play or a movie. They will act out these characters and embody those traits so that we can see them just like they exist at this time. The rest of us have the ability to influence these characters to rise to their better natures and to get divine intervention to prevent the worst from happening before they have complete run amok completely without any restraint, by putting our thoughts where we want the outcome to be. So we cannot control individuals, but we can influence the trajectory and direction of things as they are going, and allow the universe and divine intervention to step in and to move the needle in the direction it needs to go, away from chaos, misery, and suffering. So during this quarter moon and this 15-degree emphasis in Gemini, the Gemini degree, and Jupiter involved, this is a fantastic time, folks, to put your mind where your mouth is and think about the outcomes that you want to see, the higher vibration outcomes. And remember, right now it's very easy to entertain both sides of ourselves, the higher and lower natures. And the good stuff is never easy. So we may have to dig deep to find the best possible versions of ourselves when we think about what it is we're also trying to put out into the world in terms of mass consciousness and mass thought, to bring about a better outcome for everybody. So I just thought I'd put it out there. Now, this also obviously applies to your personal life, because it's like the ripples in a pond. The closer you are to where the pebble falls in the water, the stronger the ripple is. The further out, the ripples get weaker, but the ripples are still there. So in this case, when it comes to thought, it's the same thing, except for this particular quarter moon, those big strong ripples where the pebble drops is the mass consciousness thoughts that we put out in terms of outcomes that involve all of us. And the weaker ripples, which we're still feeling, they're just not as impactful and strong, are our personal agendas and motivations and goals. So it's all there, it's all connected. We're not getting away from any of it. but it's an inverse relationship. So it's not about us, me, mine, my. This is very much about us, our, we, and then trickling down, to our smaller lives. Okay. Now at this time also, Mercury will be sextiling Mars. Remember, this is a heavily Mercury emphasized quarter moon. Jupiter is in Gemini, and it's dispositing that moon, which is part of the quarter moon. The sun is in Virgo, which is Mercury ruled. Jupiter in Gemini is Mercury ruled. And Mercury is in Virgo. Mercury will be making a sextile to Mars, and this will absolutely put the fine point on the needle, right? And also, too, with Mars moving into Gemini like this, because Mars will be at 3-4 Cancer, it is in a cardinal sign. So we typically think of action, action, action when we think of Aries, but Cancer will move mountains too. They're just much more quiet about it. Aries needs a parade. And even if they don't need a parade, Aries draws attention to itself everywhere it goes. But Cancer is much more quiet about these things and does not like a lot of attention when it's getting the job done, much like Virgo. So that Mercury-Mars sextile between Virgo and Cancer right now happening is absolutely going to get the job done quietly. So if you pay attention, you'll see it, but don't expect it to be obvious and in your face. So, I'm just saying, like, put yourself out there at the highest possible expression you can. All right, and finally, around this quarter moon, we've got Uranus, Neptune, Pluto being carried at the 27th, 28th, and 29th degree, which, again, is more of this formula that has a lot to do with mass consciousness, because Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto absolutely have to do with the collective whole, not the individual, but the collective. So all of us together right now, we've been in and will continue to be in the soup. And it's very much about us moving the ship in the ocean, getting it to turn in the ocean, but we've all got to be on board with each other to make it happen. And ships turn slowly in an ocean. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto has a lot to do with evolutionary demands and social evolution. And we are coming to the end of a chapter. So, we can't bring the past back. We can't live in the past. The future and evolution is always moving forward with or without us. We can choose to stay behind, but we can't stop it from moving on without us. And right now, this is what we are working through, is major evolutionary structural change as we evolve into the next version of ourselves collectively. And, again, like I said just a few minutes ago in the previous slide, there are a lot of people who are hanging on to the past as if they could keep it here and take us back, and you can't. You just can't. But, like a big, stubborn, dumb donkey, they're going to try. They're going to try. So there's big power kicks, and digging their heels in and trying to, like, tie us to a sinking ship, in history, is going to be there. But my friends, this quarter moon, this beautiful, beautiful quarter moon, these dates around the 11th, give yourself a couple days before, a couple days after, because it's a big whopping feeling all the way around, gives us the opportunity to thread that needle and to break away from the pack like a horse race. And we can bring that dark horse from the back of the pack forward and ahead of everyone else to show them what we've got going on. You don't have to be noisy, loud, and visible to win a race. You just got to be good and determined. All right, so let's take a look at what else is going on. September 17th, 2024 will bring us a full moon eclipse at 25 Pisces. Now, this particular Pisces eclipse is full of portent and very important for a number of reasons. So the first thing is that this full moon eclipse will involve Neptune sitting at 29 Pisces. Now, Neptune is on its way out of the sign Pisces, soon to enter Aries. So this represents the end of an epoch, right? Huge, huge cycle, evolutionarily speaking, that is coming to an end. So literally, we're going to finally draw the curtains on some of this nonsense and move forward. So this eclipse involving Neptune, okay, brings us some huge time passage closings as it happens. Now, this eclipse was activated back around the 19th of August. I'll have to double check. I'll put it in the description box below. And it will be reactivated again moving forward. But for right now, we're just focusing on September. Now, the other thing that is of note with this particular eclipse is that Pisces is ruled by Neptune. So Neptune is here involved in the eclipse of its sign of rulership. At the same time, it's also going to be pulling in Jupiter, okay, as part of a T-square formation with this eclipse. And Jupiter is also the traditional ruler of Pisces. So both of the ancient rulers of Pisces are now involved in a T-square formation with the eclipse itself. This signals huge portent in terms of masses of individuals and humanity as a whole. So it will be interesting to watch to see how we move forward through this gateway or window of opportunity as it happens. With eclipses, you can often think of them as these magic portals that open and close for very limited periods of time. So you literally get very restricted, very rare access to the other parallel dimension when the eclipse is open and closed, because they're not there all the time. And Pisces being very magical and supernatural to begin with, and with both of its ancient rulers involved in this eclipse, there's absolutely the suggestion that at some fundamental, essential level, a portal is opening to a whole new parallel universe, paradigm experience, whole sort of shift happening in a mass evolutionary way. Now, for those of you, well, not for those because you're not listening to my channel for one of these people, but for those people out there, there are those who would say that it's, the end of the world is nigh, kind of thing, the 144,000, get on the bus, and all that sort of insanity. And they are not, which is interesting, because if they had to predict the end of the world, this would be a better time to do it. But also, too, the end of the world as they know it is not the end of the world as it exists. So the old world is dying away, and we are heading into a whole new playing field of how to exist in this world. So chin up, eyes focused ahead. We're getting where we need to be. It's a slow, messy cycle. So be optimistic, but also because Neptune is involved here, and eclipses are typically very unstable, and Jupiter in Gemini, can also be very quick to do about faces and turns and, literally turning on a dime with unpredictable changes of direction. During the time of this eclipse, so 10 days before, which is going to take us up to the 7th, which covers this last quarter moon we just discussed at 19 Sag, 10 days before, 3 days after is the most unstable period of time surrounding the eclipse. So be aware of your surroundings and certainly be aware of what you're doing, because not only is the fickle finger of fate at play, but this is a time when we are the most likely to take actions or make mistakes that have huge outcomes that we may not have been prepared for. So, and we're going to talk more about that in a second. Now, the other things that are happening at this time is Mars is at 7 Cancer. Okay, Mars right here. And Mars will be setting up its own T-square to the nodes. Now, typically when you have Mars or eclipses or full moons, anything involved with T-squares to the nodes, we typically get large mass scale disasters, right? And weather events and things of that nature. So don't panic. Do not panic. But do be aware that natural disasters and big, huge mass calamities are possible during these times, especially right now with this Mars T-square the nodes. At the same time, you've got this huge honking 25 Pisces full moon eclipse. So not completely sure what that's going to bring us. Don't want to hazard any guesses because it would literally all just be guesses. And I don't want anybody getting panicked. But I will say that if you're in areas that are prone to any type of natural disaster and or your insurance, like in Florida here in this country, the insurance companies have pulled coverage from homeowners in the state of Florida. I didn't even know they could do such a thing. So there's a whole lot of people in Florida that don't have any coverage for their homes if a natural disaster strikes again, right? Hurricanes and stuff like that. So if you're in a situation where you are challenged in terms of what type of emergency insurance coverage you have, physically or otherwise. Right now, as you're listening to this horoscope at the beginning of the month, this is a good time to make emergency plans if things go sideways quickly and unexpectedly. And that may literally only be making sure you've got just enough funds set aside to put fuel in the car and get you to someplace safe so you can stay in a hotel for a little while, or family or friends. Like, think about emergency planning if natural calamities were to occur unexpectedly, because we are looking at the potential for that around this 25 Pisces eclipse. Now, also, too, this could be man-made disasters. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of poo-flinging monkeys out here in charge and in leadership that are trying to drag us into World War III, and literally kill women off. And I can't even with these people. So it's not impossible that some of this may be man-made disasters and calamities that we're dealing with. Whatever it is, we need to plan ahead and stay focused on right now at the beginning of the month, emergency strategies and plans if things go sideways unexpectedly, right? So just keep that in the back of your back pocket for a little while. On a positive note, because I know this all sounds very dire, right? On a positive note, this is a time of, hands being forced. If you're a card player, like there's a point during the game when you can't keep bluffing. You've got to play your hand, and you've got to show people what you're working with. You can't keep pretending you got something you don't. So this time around this eclipse is literally forcing the evolutionary hand of a whole lot of people. So clarity and transparency and really having things exposed and being on the table by the people who've been benefiting from obscuring what they've actually been working with is definitely on tap at this point. Look for turning points to occur shortly after this eclipse, not during it, but shortly afterwards. So we've got some big twists and turns that are going to move us forward, catapult us forward in our progression that will be coming out of this period around the eclipse. Now, the other thing that's very, very good about this particular eclipse, I want you to notice this. So the first thing, Mercury is still in Virgo, a sign of its rulership. It's a beautiful position to be in. Mercury likes being in Virgo. And this particular degree has a lot to do with problem solving, right? Really getting down to the brass tacks and deep roots of a problem and solving it from there. So the cavalry is coming, and they'll be working on solving problems as a result of things that are coming up with this eclipse. The other thing is that Venus and Zeus right here are exactly together, and it's in Libra. So this could be good, this could be bad. So Venus, because remember, Venus is also a war sign, and Zeus is firepower, rockets, missiles. Venus and Zeus together could suggest or imply military actions or rockets or things that could cause large-scale explosions that will come into play under this eclipse. With any luck, divine intervention will pop up and prevent the worst from happening, but there is the very real possibility that somebody is going to decide that they want to play war games right now. Now, with that said, with Venus and Zeus together like this in Libra, this is also the sign of statesmanship and diplomacy. So this is an unbelievably good time for brilliant negotiators and diplomats, peacemakers, to step into the forefront or into the limelight and really show us what's possible when you're good at what you do, and also when you can get people on board to cooperate. So all is not lost. We've got some really spectacular people that may be coming out of obscurity and certainly into our awareness that have a lot to do with peacemaking skills and diplomacy and negotiations at this time. This will also apply to your personal life, so this is a very, very good time to be very conservative and judicious in the use of force and power to make your point or get your point across in your personal relations. Diplomacy and cooperation will get you a lot farther than ever before right now if you employ it gracefully and well. Now, to finish up, we also have Cupido right here, which is actually part of this T-square with Mars and nodes. Now, this sets up a grand cross, actually, with Cupido being the outlier here. So with Mars and Cupido in opposition to each other in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn, there is the real, my guess here looking at this is there's the real possibility that matters that have to do with food, right, and community sustenance, generational hunger, as it were, and foodstuffs being a real issue right now, as well as, for whatever reason, like matters of child brides, like people marrying very inappropriately young people. And all these things are going to come to the forefront. So we will see about that. Cruelty is very, very. So here's what's interesting, right? So with Pisces, Pisces by its nature is not a cruel sign, but if anybody were capable of unbelievable amounts of cruelty, it's Pisces, because they are the repository of all the things that we don't want to deal with in ourselves, which includes the really ugly sides of ourselves. Now, Gemini, in terms of murderers and homicide, Gemini is the most successful and likely to be able to do things like that, because Gemini is all about games, mental games in the head. So they can justify and rationalize anything because none of this is real for them. With Jupiter in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces and this eclipse in Pisces connected together, and this Mars-Cupido opposition with the nodes, there is the very real possibility that unbelievable expressions of cruelty, as if we haven't seen enough of it before, may be highlighted and brought to the forefront at this time. I know here in the United States, there's been a whole lot of just atrociously inhumane and cruel behavior that will never be forgiven. There's a whole lot of people that are going to have a whole lot of making right to do as a result of their actions or lack of them because of their cowardice. But for whatever reason, under this particular eclipse, cruelty and inhumanity may be the focal point and the tipping point for what people will no longer tolerate, which is good if it pushes us forward, but understand that this is possible. So in your personal life, if you're, well, not if you, everybody's carrying this 25 Pisces eclipse somewhere. If you're carrying personal planets anywhere near 25 Pisces, 25 Virgo, 25 Sagittarius, 25 Gemini, especially if you carry planets at Gemini or Pisces, this particular eclipse is going to be a little more destabilizing than usual. So make sure you fortify yourself and surround yourself with some real strong people who will help keep your mind, literally your head on straight for the week that we're doing, the 10 days before, 3 days after this eclipse. Make no rash decisions. Don't make any large life-changing decisions. Do your best to just literally imagine a ship in the storm being tossed around. Do your best just to hang on and ride this out so you don't get thrown off the ship, right? And certainly don't jump. Don't jump. It will pass. Now, if you can successfully get through this, you will find that visions and inspirations and clarity and these aha moments in your life will come through, and everything will start making a whole lot of sense, maybe too much sense. Because remember, the best stories don't have to make sense until the end. So you may be getting a whole lot of stuff prior now that just nothing has made sense. There's no context. It's just whatever. And now suddenly under this eclipse, the time of this eclipse, suddenly you'll have a flash of insight where everything will make sense and things will have a context that is meaningful and purposeful, and you're going to be okay. So breathe, baby. Breathe and be kind. There's a purpose here, and it will make sense in the end. So if it doesn't make sense now, it's not over yet. Okay, and for everybody else, if wherever you're carrying this Pisces full moon eclipse, look for things to come to a freaking head in your life, in the houses where this eclipse is occurring. And you know, the problem with Pisces is Pisces doesn't really like a lot of boundaries. So there's a lot of bleed out into other areas and other houses with Pisces. So we don't need to actually get into specifics because it doesn't have to be that tight. We're all going to be feeling it. So just understand that your mind, getting your mind right and keep your head on straight is the biggest challenge, especially under this eclipse. But if you can do it, the rewards are huge, huge. So be kind to each other and yourselves. And remember, the best stories don't have to make sense until the end. So if it doesn't make sense right now, it's because that story's not over. All right, now let's get to the rest of the month. Well, hello, darlings. Just wanted to, for some of you who are a little confused about what just happened, this video was originally done and uploaded, but because nothing else is working this week, of course, there was an entire section missing, which is this slide right here, um, from the finished video. So I had to pull it down and redo it and re-upload it. So that's why you're seeing it. That's why you saw it disappear and now come back again, because my computer is being bizarre. Anyway, so here we are, looking at the last quarter moon of the month on September 24th, 2024, and this is what's going to close out the month. Now, at first glance, this quarter moon looks actually pretty quiet. Like, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on here, but we know that quarter moons always promise action, right? So decisions made, actions taken, things happen on quarter moons. Like, bang, the gun goes off and everybody's off to the races. So, and maybe not quite so dramatically with this quarter moon, but definitely the wheels are now turning. So, what makes this particular quarter moon special is this. So the quarter moon occurs on the 24th, but on the next day, like within 24 hours, that moon, let me get my little marker here. Okay. This moon is going to go over here and it's going to connect to the midpoint of that Kronos-Hades conjunction. Now, we've been discussing the Kronos-Hades conjunction because it's part of a grand trine involving Saturn and Poseidon. This is a pretty big deal. This is a very pretty big deal because it's, again, with trans-Neptunians, we get almond sliver orbs. So 1 degree, that's it, baby. And this Kronos-Hades conjunction will be within an almond sliver orb, that 1 degree, of Saturn and Poseidon, which is huge, right? These are little teeny tiny windows of opportunity that express themselves. So with the moon passing through the midpoint of Kronos and Hades, so let's start with that by itself. The moon passing between the midpoint between Kronos and Hades literally brings to bear and certainly highlights matters of power, right? Because Kronos has to do with excellence and Hades has to do with all of the dark sides of ourselves that we don't want to deal with, which is typically where power is had. There's bright power and dark power, and we're talking about dark power at this point. With the moon passing there, also too, decay, disruption, because this is Hades, decay, disruption, the dogs of war, all of the things that go with chaos and destruction and dark power and abuse of power will absolutely be the quintessential and unavoidable focus of attention for everyone. Like it's like the sun at noon. You can't miss it and you can't hide from it. So the reason this is even more important is because it's involving Saturn and Pisces, the golden rule, and Poseidon and Scorpio. And Poseidon and Scorpio has everything to do with forgiving your enemies, as well as digging deep within yourself to forgive yourself. Poseidon is a trans-Neptunian, that it's the higher vibration of Neptune. It is literally all the upsides of Neptune, none of the downsides, none of the hangover. So Poseidon in and of itself has a lot to do with unconditional love and compassion. And sacrifice for the greater good. This in conjunction, or not conjunction, but in trine to Saturn and Pisces, in combination with Saturn and Pisces, which is about the golden rule, and also mercy and kindness, among other things, makes this, for anyone who's looking up to the stars instead of wallowing in the mudline, very, very auspicious and very important. Okay, so the call to action to elevate our consciousness and our nature, our very nature, to be the best possible godlike versions of ourselves in the best ways, not the dark ways, is absolutely coming to bear at this time around this quarter moon. And the moon will be there, absolutely activating that. Now, the moon with Kronos, which is about exceptionalism, the highest standard possible, gold standards, right? The moon here is going to give us a choice, literally, between angels and demons. So we will have absolutely a choice between being our highest selves or our lowest selves. And I suppose a lot of it could have to do with cowardice, because fear-driven behavior is always, any decision based on fear is always the wrong decision, and usually a selfish one. But in this particular case, it's really going to emphasize the choices we have between our higher and lower natures and who this ultimately benefits in the long run, and whether that's really what we want to do or what we should be doing. Now, the other thing that makes this particular grand trine very important is that as this is happening, in a few days, September 30th to be exact, Mars will move into the midpoint and take the place of the moon right here between Kronos and Hades. So Mars could very well act like a triggering event that will blow open what is promised by this grand trine. Because Mars is action and force. It's the ignition. It's the flame that starts the fire. So Mars hitting this degree right there on the 30th absolutely promises that whatever this grand trine is suggesting, it's going to blow wide open, and that's when the turning, not the turning point, but the choice has to be made, right? The hand has to be forced, like a card game. Now, when Mars hits that midpoint on the 30th, at the same time, Mercury will be cazimi the Sun at 8 Libra. So Mercury right now on the quarter moon is over here in the last degrees of Virgo. All right, so we're finishing up some stuff here. By the time we get to the 30th, Mercury and the Sun will both be over here at 8 Libra. Now, ignore the houses because this is a mundane chart, so don't use the houses. Now, technically, the antecedent or contra antecedent for that Mercury cazimi the Sun will be 22 Pisces or Virgo. We do not have anything in transit at that degree, but if you have personal planets or angles at those degrees, this may be, you may find this a particularly important time for you. So take any choices you are faced with in terms of responses, behaviors, actions, attitudes, or words very, very seriously. There may be more on the plate for you in terms of your future karma than is obvious at the moment, right? It's always those little tiny decisions in life that change the entire course of events moving forward. Doesn't have to be bad, but if you are aware, you're going to be much more able to make this work for you, all right? So this is our month of September. We're having a kind of a weird wibble wobble in the universe with that eclipse at 25 Pisces with Neptune at 29 Pisces, and near Saturn at 16, 19, 15, 19 Pisces. So we've got a whole big thing here that has a lot to do with the end of a chapter, or in this particular case, the end of a story. So we have reached the end of a story here. And remember, the best stories don't have to make sense until the very, very end. So right now, the call to action all month is to separate your fears and chimeras, your delusions, and your vanity fantasies about who you are. Separate that from the reality of what you're working with, the world you're living in, and who you need to rise up to become to manifest the best version of life you can possibly have, not only for yourself, but for other people, because Pisces is absolutely about what's good for everybody. It doesn't do you any good to have all the money in the world and live on an island by yourself, okay? So, at the end of the day, the things that really matter in life are the quality of relationships that we have with people around us, right? And the quality of people that we're having those relationships with. So by the time you get down to this quarter moon, you guys should be well prepared for identifying where you need to make some pivots and adjustments and shifts, and prepare yourself, literally prepare yourself to step into a brand new world that is coming around the corner. So there you go. All right, my friends, we'll go to the next slide. Right now, as we move through time, and I realize a lot of the videos I'm doing are not real specific to, your personal horoscope this week. And it is because, at the end of the day, we are in a time of tremendous change. There is an old world falling away that needs to fall away. It's had its time. It's done its damage. It needs to end. And a new civilization is rising up underneath that, And we're trying to, in our own ways, become better versions of ourselves, both collectively and individually. Now, there are people who, are scared rabbits or whatever, that absolutely cling to power and everything else they can get out of fear, very fear-based behavior and decisions, and do power grabs, do money grabs, and everything's about more, 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 mine, 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 mine. Forgetting that in every spiritual um, school, the one thing that's consistent across all of them is that all the material goods and the money and the love of these things will not protect you from the final judgment or the final decision or the final outcome of your life. At the end of the day, who you are on the inside is the only insurance you have that you're going to be able to weather these storms, right? And in order to do that, you've got to turn your focus inward. You've got to let go of your attachment to the external world and these physical things as some kind of validation of who you are, because it's not, right? And there's a lot of people who've lost sight of that. Here in the United States, in the American culture, like the televangelists are a classic example of people who are using the cloth of God and religion to line their pockets, because it's not about spirituality or being better people. It's literally about power and greed for them, right? Mostly power. And they're going to have a lot to pay for when this is over. But the thing to understand too is that all of the people who support people like that, like some people like to call them sheep, but the reality is on both ends, both with the leadership that's taking advantage of them and the followers that are allowing themselves to be exploited, these are things that are driven by fear, right? Fear and judgment and a refusal to consider any other way of seeing the world, and a desire to seek some kind of protection in life by seeing yourself as a victim or seeing yourself as being persecuted. Okay. Now, the fact of the matter is there's plenty of victims in the world. Like, that's the way it goes. But when you identify as a victim, when your identity is built on a persecution complex, right? Then it's a problem, because it's no longer about shepherding other people through these events, since you have survived them, and you know how to get them out through that darkness safely. It's no longer about that. When the persecution complex and the victimhood becomes the basis and foundation of your identity that you present to the world, instead of being a survivor, then it's about power, because you're using your victimhood and your persecution, as a shield against criticism, or challenge or accountability. It's not cool. So this month and this year with Saturn and Pisces, we've still got another year of this to go. A lot of it is about false victimhood, right? Conflated victimhood, persecution complexes, and what we're really doing with it. So we can get as upset as we want with a leadership that takes advantage of these things, but ultimately we have to check ourselves and understand that these are all fear-based things. So what is it that we're actually afraid of? And is there a better way to do things? So your life might be in shambles. Your entire life up until this point may be awful. Your life may have been great and then turned awful. I mean, these things happen. The external world is not, contrary to popular belief, the external world is not a measure of who you are and your inherent value and worth in this world. The external circumstances that you find yourself in and the life circumstances that you find yourself surrounded by are literally measures and expressions of choices and events that you had no control over. How you respond to these things, who you become, who you choose to become as a result of these things, that is what they're there for. So when you look at somebody who's doing really, really well materially, ask yourself, but who is this person in terms of their character? Like, when push comes to shove, what is their first default reflex action, priority, value? Is it other people and the well-being of the people around them, or is it themselves and lining their own pockets and amusing themselves and to hell with everybody else, right? When you look at people who are not doing well, right, ask yourself, like, how much of this is a result of unfortunate circumstance? Because life will hand you a whole big plate of yikes, right, that you have no control over. And all you can do is respond the best you can and allow this to shape you to find wells and reserves of strength and power and ingenuity and greatness and compassion within yourself as a result of having to go through these experiences. Those are choices. Okay, so the external world, just a reminder, the external world is not a measure or validation of how well you're doing or what kind of person you are. Contrary to popular belief, those are all literally just circus events and exercises. The real measure is who you choose to be as a result of these things. We know plenty of rich people that aren't worth a damn, okay, and are absolutely doing everything they can to destroy the planet and everyone in it because they can't think past their own fear-based motivations. Big money grabs, big power grabs. They figure they're going to die before this becomes a problem, and literally they're kicking the can down the road so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren are the ones who are going to have to deal with the cleanup, if there's anything left to clean up. This is their short-sighted priority list. So the polar caps are melting. We've got more garbage on the planet and in the sea than we know what to do with. We are literally suffering under the weight of our consumerism and our shallow thinking that external stuff is a reflection and measure of how much value we have in society. And right now we're turning. Everything is turning. So this Pisces eclipse, we're going to be feeling it all month long, and it's very, very challenging. And it may depress the daylights out of some of you. So I just wanted to let you know, you just got to weather this storm and get through it. You're awesome and amazing just the way you are. And every life that you touch has gratitude that they can't express to you adequately. And in the end, my friends, it's about legacy. It's about what we leave behind, right? So everything you do in terms of the people you connect with, the choices that you make, the decisions that you make, it's literally about who you're choosing to allow yourself to become as a result of these experiences, and what are you leaving behind as your legacy. If you focus on that, you're going to be okay, and we're going to get through this. And if nobody's told you recently, I think you are freaking awesome. And I may not even know you yet, but I know you're awesome. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you later. Hang in there. Hey, folks. So this is going to be a quick personal message from me. And listen, you guys know that I'm never on here hawking services or classes or webinars or what have you. I mean, I certainly could, and certainly could have done it before now, but I don't. And most of what I do for you guys because I genuinely enjoy it, and I really feel like for somebody out there, it's helping. So remember when I said that I sprained my wrist and it's going to be out of commission for a week? As it turns out, it is not going to be a week. I have a grade 2 or a grade 3 sprain in my wrist, which is the equivalent of just short of breaking a bone, which means that I'm going to be out of commission physically, because it's my dominant writing hand, from anywhere from 4 to 6 or 8 to 12 weeks. We're looking at 2 to 4 months where I'm going to be out of commission for doing physical work. And while this may not seem like a big deal, depending on what your occupation is, but for me, when I'm not doing this for you guys, I'm actually a medical massage therapist. And because I've got a grade 2, grade 3 sprain here, and also in my shoulder, I've got a grade 2 sprain in my shoulder, I'm literally going to be physically incapable of doing my occupation for at least 2 months minimum, and possibly up to 3 or 4 months. So that's a long time without an income. So I've got to do a whole lot of pivoting and shifting now to figure out how to fix this, you know, and to get through the next few months. So what I can do without doing physical work is I certainly can do consultations and readings and answer your questions. So if you're interested right now, because this is basically a fire sale, I will accept love donations for readings or consultations. So my Cash App and my Venmo are there on the screen. I also accept Bitcoin if you want to send it by Bitcoin. When you send your donation, please make sure that you include your email or your phone number or your WhatsApp number in the message along with your questions, so that I can send you your reply. If you don't connect these things for me when you initially send your donation, I'm not going to know where or who the money came from, and I'm not going to be able to confirm it. So again, if you decide to take up my offer for a love donation for a reading or consultation, make sure when you send it in the message, include your contact information, phone, email, WhatsApp, Snapchat, whatever it is, carrier pigeon, so that I can reply to you and also include your questions. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. Please, please, and on top of everything else, half my face is swollen because I got bit by a spider. Just having a great time right now. So, as tempting as it is for some people to take advantage of this situation, I'm just going to warn you, I would not exploit or take advantage of the situation unduly. We are under a Pisces eclipse, and it's with Saturn, and karma will come and bite you on the butt much faster than you think it will. So do yourself a favor and earn yourself some Akashic gold stars, and do the right thing if you're going to do anything at all, with all things in life, not just this. All right, guys. Hopefully I'll hear from some of you, and in the meantime, I will see you again shortly. I'm definitely doing the Kamala Harris and Tim Walz charts. I'm a huge fan of Tim Walz. Kamala, not so much. But, we don't know. You don't know what you're dealing with until somebody's really deep in it, and then they show you where their character truly is. So we'll see. We'll see. So that's coming up next. In the meantime, you guys be well. And remember, it's all about the golden rule this month. Everything you've earned up to this point and everything you're making for yourself in spades moving forward. This is a really big, important time to shift your consciousness to the right place. All right, talk to you later.